Hi, I'm Marie-Hélène Pelletier, and I'm about to have a productive conversation with Mike Vardy.
Welcome to A Productive Conversation. I'm Mike Vardy, and I'm excited to welcome Marie-Hélène Pelletier to the program today. Throughout her career in business management and psychology, Dr. Pelletier has spearheaded a dialogue on the crucial issues of leadership, resilience, and workplace health. Drawing on her extensive background in corporate, insurance, governance, and public sectors, she brings national and international perspectives and expertise on mental health and resilience as a key pillar of overall health. She is a bilingual practicing psychologist with over 20 years of experience in clinical psychology and advisory workplace psychology, and holds a PhD and an MBA from the University of British Columbia. Marie-Hélène is also a member of the Global Clinical Practice Network of the World Health Organization and past director on the boards of the Canadian Psychological Association and the International Association of Applied Psychology. She's presented, authored, and co-authored a number of industry and academic publications and has won numerous academic and industry awards. And in 2024, her book, The Resilience Plan, A Strategic Approach to Optimizing Your Work Performance and Mental Health, was released and is receiving wide acclaim. We dive into resilience. What's the difference between grit and resilience? What is a strategic resilience plan? Is it static? Is it dynamic? How do you know when to change it? We get into so much during this conversation. I hope you'll get a lot out of it. I know I did. So without further ado, here is my conversation, and a productive one at that, with Marie-Hélène Pelletier. Marie-Hélène, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today on A Productive Conversation.
Excited to be here, Mike.
So I'm holding in my hands right now the book, The Resilience Plan, A Strategic Approach to Optimizing Your Work Performance and Mental Health. And I will say, like, as I went through the book, right out of the gate, uh, when we were talking about the beginning, where we talk about like you're fabulous and at risk, which is a fantastic paradoxical element when you think about like you're amazing, but watch out. One of the things that came struck me right away when we're talking about resilience, and especially in the relationship to time and being productive, was this idea of sustaining it. So sustaining resilience. There's a part where, um, you know, uh, most of us have our eye on resilience when things are mostly fine. Like on day one, we can be very, very good, and that's like anything with productivity. You decide, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take on this shiny new strategic approach, or what have you, and then all of a sudden, you apply it, it works fine day one, maybe even day two, but then all of a sudden things start. So the uncertainties, some of the interesting things that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate, anomalies show up, and then that's where you say, we get caught up as day eight. Right. When more things are going on and we have more unexpected and larger demands, and we are not as attentive to what we need to do to stay resilient. So this is where old habits die hard. So uh, you know, how do you try to cultivate resilience in a way that is sustainable so that you don't pile it on to all the things that you're trying to get better at?
Yes, and there's so many layers to this. One of the things that happens sometimes is we will decide on how to handle the situation today based literally on old data.
Right.
So it used to be, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, earlier in your career, where you could actually just take whatever demands come, meet them, put your head down, keep going, and it would work. You'd be fine. And then we find ourselves 5, 10, 20 years later trying to approach things in the same way, and it doesn't work. And so to your point, it almost has become a habit. And part of how we switch this habit is with more deliberate, realistic and attention and visibility on what's actually going on now, what's my actual current context, so that I can make different decisions that are better aligned with where I'm at.
And that involves a plan. I mean, you can't just go into this without, and this hence the name of the book. One of the things that I noticed when I picked up the book was there's a nice little bookmark that I got, and that's got the title of the book on it. But one of the things, and this comes up early on, is resilience is not a given. You need a strategy. Why do you think people think that resilience is just something that happens and it doesn't require any sort of deep thought or mindful approaches to it? Instead, it's just like, well, if I'm at something long enough, I'm going to be resilient. Maybe that's the definition. Or they're confusing resilience with grit, even though they are cousins, they're not exactly the same. I'd love to dive into the idea of what you do when how do you break that pattern of someone thinking, yeah, well, I'm resilient. I've been able to put up with this for an extended period of time, as opposed to no, 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 no. What if you could apply resilience to other areas of your life, regardless of whether it's something that you enjoy doing or something that you don't necessarily enjoy doing?
Yes. We and I've heard this so many times in my work, in my executive coaching work. In fact, that's in part how the book emerged because so many people said, once we've done the work, is comments like, "This is so helpful for me to have this now. I wish I knew sooner." And that's in part how I started thinking, okay, if I get this in a book, it will get in the hands of at least one more person,
Right.
hopefully more, sooner. But we get to thinking this from there's various forces that will get us there, that to that point where we actually assume that it's part of our personality. Number one, we've seen ourselves go through challenging times, demanding times, making it successfully, pushing through. And so you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can do this. It's part of who I am. And then there will be people around us who will say, "Oh, Mike, you are the rock. You're always so resilient. You're the rock of the team. You're the rock of the family. You're the rock of the group of friends." And so you hear it, it's meant as a positive, of course. And so you incorporate this. You're like,
Right.
yes, I am.
Yep.
I actually am a rock.
Hmm.
and and so all these pieces, internal messages, external messages, make us get to a point where we think it's part of who I am, so I don't need to do anything about it. Or the other thinking sometimes is I'm going to decide if I want to be resilient when I need it. I just need to pull that card, and that's something I can just decide. No, it isn't. And it's not a personality trait either. Or sometimes people will think, well, it will be whatever it is. I'll just feel the way I do when I do. And no, no, it's not that sort of passive. You actually very much can, and I would argue, really want to invest in building your resilience.
It leads to so many thoughts around this. But the first thought I have, before we hit record, we started discussing, how we got to where we're both Canadian. Again, the pattern of interviewing Canadians always makes me happy, makes me smile. I can start saying a boot and things like that. No, but but we were talking about the idea of like growing up. I grew up in my entire family when I was growing up. We all lived near Southern Ontario or somewhere around there, and then one day I just decided I needed to change. I needed to make some moves for a bunch of reasons, notwithstanding, I just didn't see myself making any progress. I'm going to move out west. And I did. And it led me to build this life that I have now, which is nothing like the life that it looked like back then. Believe me, that, working for Costco and all that stuff, this is a very different Mike that we're dealing with, 25 years later. Um, do people recognize, like, to me, it almost feels like when we were talking about this before, and even what you were just talking about, do people think that they're being resilient when they're not? Like, is there a false sense of resilience that people can get where it's like, and they're maybe overestimating their own levels or sense of resilience when they're really not doing that? Like, are there degrees of resilience? I guess is the real crux of the question that people may pay more attention to versus something that just kind of happens. Like, because I think that's where people can get caught up is, well, I feel like I'm resilient, and like maybe in certain situations, but in others you're not.
There are many angles to this great observation that you're making just now. That um, Sometimes I mean, it connects with the concept we hear about also in the research and practice of emotional intelligence, that self awareness, right? Because you could be successfully going through demands and
Hmm.
challenges. And because of a set of circumstances, it works out. Okay. Does it mean that your battery is getting drained much faster than you'd want? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's not just measured by the outcome. The our resilience. If we go to the definition first,
Hmm.
we would say our ability to go through adversity and come out even stronger. So there is an element of successfully managing this and building, keeping our ability to do more later. There is sustainability, there's a growth element to it. And so you could be going through things successfully, thinking that it's fine, and it may or may not mean that your resilience and ability to deal with the next challenges is there for you. So it does connect with the importance of checking in and
Right.
knowing how things are going, monitoring this, taking actions to build that baseline, if you will.
Hmm.
So yeah, many angles to
You know,
this.
it's funny as I was listening to a podcast episode yesterday. I'll share it in the show notes. It's Adam Grant's podcast. It was a one that was revisited. His conversation with John Green, the author of The Fault in Our Stars, and he was talking about paying attention to paying attention, right? Like paying, and it's interesting because I think that people get caught up in a couple of things. Number one, um, they don't check in. We live in a
Mhm.
world that doesn't exactly promote checking in because it's about moving forward, not taking a pause, right? And again, another episode which I think would be very related to our conversation today is my conversation with Juliet Funt, where we talked about giving yourself white space, because in those moments of white space, moment to think, that's where I think some of these nuanced things that we need to keep in mind, like resilience doesn't just present itself, as you pointed out, as this very specific thing all the time. There's like you said, there's different angles. And the reason this comes up to me is you talk about, there's a quote I think it's in the third chapter. In resilience, unhelpful thoughts eat your best intentions for breakfast. And for me, productivity, and I've shared this many years, is productivity isn't about efficiency and effectiveness. Those are byproducts. But what productivity is the active linking between your intentions, big or small, whatever they are, and your attention. If you don't have those actively linked, then, your intentions, to your point, they get eaten for breakfast, right? Because you're not, intention without attention is powerless, right? So, but these unhelpful thoughts, we get in our own way. How do we keep ourselves from getting in our own way with these unhelpful thoughts so that we can actually display, come out on the other side, as you pointed out, better for it, as opposed to just grinding through it, which I think is when people get grit and resilience confused, right? I think that's where the confusion lies. To me, grit, and again, the way I look at grit is I'm going to go through it no matter what. It doesn't, what you're like on the other side doesn't matter. It's just the getting through. Whereas resilience offers almost like an upgrade at the end, right? Like a level, like a video game level up almost to a degree.
Yes, yes, that's very nice. And because there are times, if we're going to respond with resilience to a challenge, there may be times where the decision will be to let it go,
Right.
to say, I'm out. I'm not
Right.
doing this. And so it is absolutely not grit at all cost. I agree with this. So how do we uh, almost like you said, protect ourselves from ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is the element of, and it does connect with the checking in and how we don't tend to do that. We need to create a structure. And for some people, it will actually be part of their own strategic resilience plan. That may actually be a pillar for some people who realize they don't tend to do it. Therefore, it needs to receive deliberate attention, becomes a pillar in my own um, uh, resilience strategic plan with actions. And the actions could look like creating a structure for myself, for example, saying once a month or once a week in the more demanding times, I will sit down with myself and just write for 10 minutes how I'm feeling right now. That may be an option.
Mhm.
For some people, for some people, or in some phases of our personal and professional lives, we need someone around us. The
Right.
same way that we may have needed a personal trainer for exercise at some point, and we may not need one right now. There may be moments in building a business, in moving to a new leadership role, in being in the role I'm in right now and sustaining my health, where the way I'm going to make sure I check in and even get poked by someone else to make sure I'm not ignoring some sides is to work with someone, right? Sometimes people will do this. So the way to protect yourself and make sure you are checking in, sometimes it's you create your own structure because life is so busy, schedules are so full, overflowing at times, that in the absence of a commitment to it, you won't do it. And for some, again, there will be some context where a commitment with a person, which could also be, yeah, it could be a professional you're paying to work with you. It could be a peer that you just agree together that once a month, and we can't cancel no matter what, we're checking in with each other, right? That can happen that way. And similarly, checking in on your thoughts. You could do the same on your own with the help of some books. Mine is one. There are some others as well. Um, or with someone so that it happens. But in the absence of a commitment and a checking in, it may not happen. What gets measured gets done. And it's true for this as well.
Yeah, one of the things I got as I was going through the book, a couple of things right out of the gate was number one, no one resilience plan looks the same. You know what I mean?
That's right.
The elements are the
Yep.
same, and you discuss that. We don't want to get too deep into the weeds with that because obviously we want people to pick up the book, but there is a framing that allows for this so that while so I love it when a framework applies the is objective, but it allows so much room for the subjective to take place because we're all individuals. And what I appreciate about what you did in this book, which is both a blessing and a curse in some respects, and you hear me through on this one, is you set the table early on for like, here's what you need, here's the front end work that you need to do before you start building your strategic approach. Like you need to understand there's some fundamentals that you have to have down or at least have a acknowledgement or understanding of before you dive in because it's kind of like you want to going into the fray without having the right equipment will affect how you do when you're in it. But the curse part is it's the lead up that front end time you don't really see tangible things you can check off necessarily, which is again what this world tends to promote. Did you get that thing done? Did you check off that box? How many things did you get done? Very quantitative. And you're right. What measures gets managed, and if you don't measure it, then it can't be managed. But we all, in the world of productivity, I think that it's leaned so heavily towards the quantitative that the qualitative suffers. So for somebody who, when you're putting the book together, this is a two-parter for sure when you were putting this book together, number one, you're an expert in this area, so your head is filled with these things, and you need to kind of go back to beginner's mind and help people with the fundamentals. Um, was that a conscious choice to say, look, we need to lay the groundwork, and you've constructed exercises and actionable things to happen, so it's not like they read half the book and then they get to the nitty gritty. But for someone who struggles with I just need to get I need to get started now. I need to check off boxes. How do you get them to get those fundamentals down so that they can actually get a better plan out of the deal as opposed to just one that they've put together that may have some cracks in the armor?
That's such a great observation, and you're right. We think this way sometimes, and I do as well. So I would say if that's you, you're listening to Mike and you're like, yeah, Mike gets me. That's exactly, I'm that person. Then skip to the chapter you feel like doing. Read the end of each chapter. There is usually an exec summary, very brief.
Yep.
Read just that. Go to the chapter that speaks to you. Because if this is where your brain's at right now, this is what will keep you active. I've done this with other books as well. And um, so, and I would say more important, like literally, done's better than perfect.
Yes.
So more important right now than reading the book from the beginning where MH thought, you may want to start.
Hmm.
Now, do your thing, and that's fine. You can come back later if it makes sense, or if the plan is missing a few things that you're like, oh, wait a second, maybe there was something else there that I needed to make sure I catch. But I would say no, follow your nose. That's what you need. That being said, yes, I did. Number one, it is a friendly book. It's like
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
35,000
yeah.
words. So
There,
it's on the concise side. So even if you're feeling impatient, you may be able to handle it. But I did, yeah, many times I wrote so much more that then I would go back and say, does my reader need this to go from point A to point B? And if the answer was, it's fascinating information, it's great context, it's great studies or whatever, but it won't be necessary. Poop, it's out,
yeah.
gone. And so that's very much how I approached it. That's why it became a very concise book, because I know my audience does not have a lot of time anyway. But that was the idea.
Well, and you
Um,
want them to pay attention to the things that matter, not just attention for attention's sake, too, right? Like so that's the tricky part too, because when you're writing a book, number one, when you're dealing with a framework that is it has dynamic elements in it, even though it's a fairly static framing, you could go on and on and on and on about that. Like, well, how does this work for me? Which is why you coach, right? Like that's where the coaching comes in. So the book is, again, to your point, it's like get in where start where you from where you're at, right? And then go back and fine tune, refine things like that if that's what you need. Because this stuff isn't going to, in my experience, it's going to be the one that has the greatest impact long term, but you have to kind of spend time with it for that to happen, right? Like you need to kind of get the flywheel spinning because again, when we think about terms like managing time or productivity or paying attention, self-awareness, those they don't seem like they don't seem very progressive in terms of like, okay, I did this, so therefore I'm that much more productive than I was yesterday. You won't notice it. It's compounding, right? So that's and what I loved is not only it is a concise book, which is great. But also you have some illustrations and you walk people through, as well as at the end you say, hey, let's develop. Here's a planner. Here's like a planner that you can use. So it's got actionable tactical stuff along with the stuff that makes you think. Uh, how important was it for you to make sure that the book had actionable elements in it, knowing your audience, but also knowing that you wanted to keep the book concise? Because everything you've pulled out, I'm sure you're using in your practice, probably in blog posts, maybe a follow-up book, maybe it's a deeper end of the pool because resilience, I mean, there's a lot of places you can go with it, right?
yes. Well, at this point, this is the book. I'm not sure that I will have the bandwidth to do another one, frankly, Mike.
It's
But
doing really well though. So why? I mean, yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Like we were talking before, and it's been garnering a lot of praise, which we'll link to in the show notes, of course.
thank you. The no, being actionable was critical, because I bring very much my psychologist mind to this and my business mind to it as well. From a psychological perspective, if you change nothing, nothing's going to change. So it's very nice to have insights read interesting things or believe that you'd love to do whatever. Ultimately, what will make a difference is what changes are you making, and so that's there. My business audience is wanting that. They are after actions. And so it connects
Yeah.
perfectly. We
Yep.
all agree. Very
Yep.
nice. So therefore, yes, we are going to be on actionable terms. And so, and that's why I've designed the exercises to be very short. They're 5, 10, at the most 15 minutes. If you go through the book, crossing the continent on a flight, you'll get out with your plan. So it is very actionable. And one of the things that I've heard and seen many times and experienced, because I use the thing myself,
Hmm.
is once you've done the plan, a lot of people see the change fairly quickly.
Right.
I've actually had a person attend a book workshop, then attend the same content a few months later. And she realized how the initial plan she had made had been implemented, and she was not ready for the evolution, just like in business, right? The next
Mm-hmm.
version of your strategic plan. So that means within 3 months for her, that was now implemented. She was feeling fabulous about it, and she was moving to the next level. So if you get on with this, you can make changes.
Well, and what that brings to mind is this idea where, and again, this is becoming, I wouldn't say becoming increasingly more common in our world, but the ability to do so feels like it's becoming more common, but it's really kind of an illusion, is the old set it and forget it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm setting
Yeah.
up my plan, it's set, therefore it's done. I can just keep, and especially in the world of AI now, where you're putting plans in motion, you're getting, there's elements where you could say, hey, I remember reading a friend of mine, Srini Rao, wrote about like getting a digital chief of staff. I know Cal Newport's talked a bit about this and slow productivity, as well as where AI can fit in. But this idea of setting it and forgetting it, I'd love to hear, when do you know that what you've set can't be forgotten? So in other words, like for time crafting, for example, you talked about the commonalities between setting up your own, strategic resilience plan, and time crafting, where it's like, but Mike, my horizontal themes don't work anymore. I'm like, okay, well, but the horizontal themes work, just where you have them right now. Your situation has changed. Maybe your focus has changed. Like, there's things have changed. So just apply the framework a bit differently. But when people come across those obstacles, they're like, oh, it's often because, again, the pace of the world, the demands. You talk about supply and demand in here too, which I think is really important in terms of overwhelm and that sort of thing. But for somebody who's thinking or feels that they, once they put a plan in motion, that it's a set it and forget it idea, what are some of the warning signs that people need to look for when they're looking at the resilience plan to see, oh, wait a minute, I said it, but it's coming back. I can't forget it as much as I used to, because it seems to not be working as well as it was. Like, what are some of the warning signals people will come across in your experience that will mean, hey, you need to look at your plan again, and you need to fine tune it, or maybe even overhaul it?
Yes. Well, that's usually when people will come to me,
Mm,
to either have an individual session to find where's the glitch, for me, what
right.
something that it doesn't seem to be delivering. And in my experience, this happens if um, the plan was maybe done. They stayed a bit too high in their expectations. They did not take into account really realistically their context. So they still went with a bit of an ideal. They still went with, okay, so let's say one of their new pillars is a focus on physical health. Let's say one of their tactics or actions, um, and let's say in their context, they have not been exercising at all in the past 3 months, context,
Hmm.
life, whatever. And they've put in their plan, I want to go back to doing 3 half-hour walks per week. And they wrote this. That was like part of their action. So they wrote this because they would like that.
Right.
However, if you're working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, you have a family, and you are a single parent right now, this will not happen. It will not happen.
Yeah.
And so if you're wanting to increase that pillar, we're not going for what, I don't know, people around us would think is a good idea, or Mike's plan is that. Why is my plan not the same way? No, no, none of this. We're instead going to perhaps say, you're going to take 5 deep breaths each time you wash your hands. So you already wash your hands many times a day.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's not requiring more time, but now we're adding this component to it that is just for you, that will contribute to your overall physical health. It's not going to change your life. You'll need more over time, but this you actually can do. And that's then we're putting you back on a track of something that will be achievable, will increase your sense of self-efficacy, and you can build from there. Now we're starting. So sometimes it will be that kind of thing that people will put something nice, something they were able to do before, something else, something that someone else is doing, but is not theirs, not right now.
Marie-Hélène, we could continue, but I know I want to be respectful of your time, and I want people to go out and grab this book right away, because there are elements of this that I think that can help you improve your relationship with time, cultivate a sense of productiveness. Again, that
Yeah.
sustainable aspect of it. Because when I picked up the book and started reading it, it embodies a lot of the things I look for in frameworks, and it's what time crafting is built on: the idea of simplicity, flexibility, durability, and sustainability. All of that. I mean, when I hear when you approached me, Marie-Hélène, and said, "Look, I'd love to chat about my book," I'm like, "Oh, this is like everything that time crafting is, but for resilience as opposed to for time or productiveness or what have you." So the book is called The Resilience Plan: A Strategic Approach to Optimizing Your Work Performance and Mental Health. I love the cover too, by the way, the elastic band and so on and so forth. We have so
Ah,
many of those in our household. I've had to build like one of those balls, those, which is again amazing, like how elastics can work inside those balls. It's like, wow, it became something that I didn't expect. And you're again the tensile strength of rubber bands. There's definitely a nice metaphor or analogy there. Where can
thank you.
people keep up with your work, Marie-Hélène, and where can they get the book?
Yes. Book is everywhere. So where you buy your books, local bookstores, you can order it from there if they don't have it in store. Otherwise, your online stores, the Amazons and Barnes and Nobles and Chapters and Indigo, all this. And you can read more on theresilienceplan.com. There are free worksheets that you can access. We'll put this in the show notes probably as well.
Yep.
And that we can see everything that I do and connect on LinkedIn. I always love to read what you're interested in and be connected so we can continue this conversation even more.
Well, thanks for having a productive conversation with me today. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks to Dr. Pelletier for joining me on the program today. You can find out all the relevant links, show notes, etc. at productivityist.com/podcast 536. That will get you what you need in order to check out the episode. If you can't check it out there, go to mikevardy.com/podcast 536. That will also do the trick. That's it for this episode. But before we go, I want to remind you that there are ways to support the show that are easy, free, and very frictionless. One is to subscribe to the show wherever you are getting your podcasts, be it YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That way you won't miss a single episode of What's to Come, which includes episodes in my special limited series with Patrick Roan called PM Talks, as well as episodes from The Vault, where we revisit conversations from years gone by. But also, as a subscriber, you can search through the archives quickly and easily. That's one way to support the show. Another is to check out the sponsors that you heard during our conversation today. Go to productivityist.com/podcast sponsors to check out those sponsors. You can also go to mikevardy.com/podcast sponsors to check them out, and click on the links for those that resonate with you. That way they know that we sent you, and that helps keep the lights on, the speakers going, all that fun stuff. And it allows me to bring more conversations, productive ones at that, for you each and every week. That's it for now. Until next time, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of A Productive Conversation, reminding you to stop doing productive and start being productive. See you later.